amplify their work. And with that, it's the perfect segue to talk about the technologist who is in the house with us right now. So we're going to enjoy a fireside chat with Mr. Mahathir Aziz, the CEO of MDEC. Let's mosey on up here. Now, give him a warm welcome. Good morning, please have a seat.
Okay.
Now, under his leadership, Mr. Mahathir Aziz has been able to really drive Malaysia's digital economy so it can represent, and this is the forecast for 2025, over 25% of Malaysia's GDP, which is quite the accomplishment. You have a career that spans over multiple decades. You are driving and managing Malaysia's digital transformation. There's a lot for us that we're going to get to in the next 20 minutes or so about that process. We're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about drones, we're going to talk about challenges and also your forecast for the future. But I always like to kick things off with a personal question. Malaysia has some of the best food in the world, and you're really into fitness and you're a really fit guy, so how do you do it?
Well, that threw me off. But anyway, I think you pick and choose the so-called good ones, and you start to rotate. You don't take all of them at one go.
Last night I took all of them at one go.
Yeah.
Can I share with you what we had for dessert last night?
That, so.
Well, yeah. What did we have last night? We had gula melaka cake and banana fritters, and yeah, that's why I'm asking for some advice.
That's very nice. I would like to enjoy that on consecutive days. So
you say the secret is moderation. That's a very good tip.
Yes.
Now, I want to start with a quote in an article that you recently published in The Edge, and it was called "The Alchemy of Malaysia's digital transformation and its economic growth." And you argue that digital advancement is no longer a luxury, but it's a necessity. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by that?
I think if you were to look at that, I think there's no choice for anyone or any businesses to actually decide not to go digital. So whether it's coming from the requirements to transform and operate within and utilizing technology, and also leveraging on the talents that they have that can produce, interact with, and produce, I think, work and productivity, efficiency based on something digital as well. So at that, and use that as a baseline for how you operate, I think we expect businesses and everyone in any country would, as they speak and go into transformation, would have to look at that and cannot live without that.
Gotcha. Now, as I mentioned at the top, Malaysia's digital economy is set to represent over a quarter of Malaysia's GDP by next year. So are you on track, and how do you plan to get there?
We are, based on the reports out of 2023, we are slightly above 23%. It's about 23.2, 23.5%, and we are working with the Department of Statistics to finalize those numbers as well. We are extremely positive that that number, if not achievable, it is something that we will get very, very close to.
Yeah.
Again, I think the investments on especially infrastructure, whether it's 5G, data centers, or AI-ready infrastructure, is something that we have been seeing a huge spike and a huge interest as well, which again, one of the topics that we will get into in a bit. So again, whether it's on the solution development, the infrastructure, the equipments, manufacturing of those equipments, and assembly of those happening inside Malaysia as well.
Yeah, so to propel Malaysia's digital economic growth, you have the infrastructure investment and development, the hardware.
Yep.
You also need the software, especially digital skills, the people. So can you tell us about what's going into that training future fit Malaysians to really help drive forward the digital transformation of Malaysia?
If I can just take take us back maybe about 25 years ago as we embarked, or Malaysia embarked on the multimedia super corridor then.
Yeah.
And that was the big intent on leveraging on ICT and moving into a knowledge-based society. So MDEC was the only agency that partakes and leads any digital economy development. So that basically extends all the way from bringing in investments, looking at and working with the policymakers on the types and the kinds of policies that Malaysia should have in order for us to grow, and based on that, and we leverage a lot on the international advisory panel at that time, the Microsoft, the Dell, and the likes. And at the same time, while we were doing that, we also recognized the need for talents to be upskilled, to be ready for any investments, to be sustainable. So that was part of the mandate that we've been doing for many, many years. Of late, I think if you were to turn around, throw a pebble, you will hit an agency or a company that is actually doing something on talent development as well. So they are doing that, and we do recognize, and we want to be able to collaborate with that. However, if I were to turn the spotlight back into at MDEC, we have multiple levels of programs that we offer, both from the primary schools through My Digital Maker. We have the secondary schools, the Digital Ninja program. We have the university under the Premier Digital Tech Institutions. We also have for freelancers, for experienced professionals, through programs and certifications that we run together with them, whether it's My Digital Maker professionals, e-usahawan, gig, and the like. So there's a gamut of I think, programs that we run to ensure that no one is left behind. You mentioned about floating all the boats and not just some. So we want to be able to be able to get all the entire ecosystem, talents, and also the people.
It's incredible. You have a spectrum of training programs across all age ranges, including, so they're digital ninjas in Malaysia? Did you say that?
Yes, we call them that because these are the guys who are working in the background, producing the kinds of not only
quiet but effective.
Exactly, technical skills, and also I think the soft skills. You mentioned about the communications.
Yes.
I guess Asians, if I can be a bit more critical on not only Malaysia but maybe around the region, ASEAN or whatever it is, we know how to deliver stuff, but sometimes we don't know how to tell the good stories of what we have done. So I think this is the part where the digital ninjas are there to be able to build the soft skills to complement whatever technical skills that we are teaching them and whatever that we are certifying them in. Because the moment you get to being a professionals and working, it's not good enough to meet your KPI. You have to know how to communicate how you met the KPI, how you plan to do more, and all that. So I admire people who are in communications. I do look up to them and see how and learn from them.
Yeah. You have to train up the technical writers and marketers in addition to the engineers.
That's right.
But also in addition to some professions that frankly did not exist a couple years ago, like AI coders or metaverse animators. I mean, there is a wealth of new classes of jobs that are coming to the fore because of Malaysia's digital transformation.
Yes, I think if I can recall my own personal experience, I graduated with computer science from a couple of universities in Canada. So when I went there, one of the things that my uncle actually told me, go there, get your degree, come back, sell computers, and that's it. Because that was the only jobs available for anyone with anything related with computers. So yeah, I went there with that goal of proving him wrong. And by the time I got back, Malaysia was already, 2 or 3 years into this digital journey or ICT transformation that we were looking at. And we saw, I think, the boom of new jobs being created. Software developers, not only for the banking industry, but then there are what we call .coms, that the sexy startups of today and unicorns and all that. So Malaysia had mushrooming of startups and .coms at that point. So those were the kind of jobs that began in, say, the mid-90s, which has evolved into the kind of jobs that we see today, as you mentioned. We have prompt engineers, we have game designers, layout, I think storytellers, all within this animation, games, and even, I think, the systems that we use today. So again, as with AI, there must be a way to actually intricate that and assimilate that into all this that we do.
prompt engineer is a very interesting job description. And for those in the room who may not be as familiar with AI, could you describe what a prompt engineer does?
Well, to the level best of my knowledge, I think it's about knowing what sort of questions that you ask, what sort of designs, and also getting the right answers. It's actually no different than talking to a person and trying to get what they want out of them, what you want rather out of them.
Yeah.
So again, communications is still how you ask, what you ask for, and how you actually encourage them to bring that out.
Now let's talk about inclusivity.
Yeah.
Because that's important. How do you make sure that no one gets left behind during this digital revolution?
Within MDEC, we do have these tours or jelajah in Malay called Saya Digital. And this is basically what started out as a campaign that we do to ensure that people are aware of many things and many aspects, risks, and also I think the problems that come with being digital. Whether it's on the cybersecurity and the scam and the personal data that is available out there, what to share, what not to share, and things like that. I think that part, as we go into this, the nice things, again, it's easy to talk about investments. It's easy to talk about the jobs that they create. Everything is positive on that side. But it is about warning them, the perils and the possible pitfalls for anything as you go digital. Banking, for example. What we learned from COVID was that our parents then, or grandparents, are suddenly becoming more adept and comfortable using and doing banking on the phones.
Which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
But they're also getting exposed to the bad things.
Yes. So that inclusivity is something that we want to be able to look at that. On the next side, and again, I like to use COVID, again, as they say, that's the best transformation agent, if anything, or the reason for transformation, is Malaysia learned during that point was that accessibility to infrastructure was not basically something that everyone enjoys. So there were issues in terms of coverage, not just 5G or 4G, but rather internet coverage for them to be able to go, learn, enjoy the kind of services that we all enjoy in bigger cities and things like that. So the work intensified, I think, through an agency, MCMC as the regulator, and also DNB, our sister agency, to look at providing the right coverage supported by all the telcos in Malaysia to ensure that we don't get into that situation and we learn from this. Third one is actually devices. And we're talking about this. Some device can work with this, some just, struggle to actually run your e-learning and whatever Google Classroom programs that was available at that time. So again, bringing that particular group of the have-nots into this group that enjoys all this benefit is also the other aspect of inclusivity that we do. The last being, as part of the ESG and sustainability, is again inclusivity of groups that is, I think, less fortunate, and you have a greater group of people who might be marginalized a bit by certain biases that people would have when they do something like this. So we try to address this. I'm not saying that we have all the answers today, but it is something that we work with the NGOs and the likes.
But you have that sensitivity. It is a priority at MDEC, and that is so important because the digital ecosystem is so vast. According to MDEC, I'm just going to read this out. The digital ecosystem includes digital agriculture, digital services, digital health, digital finance, digital trade, I'm not done yet, digital content, digital tourism, digital economy. I mean, this is massive. And it's a reminder of just how many sectors are being digitized or in the process of being digitized right now, which is what you're overseeing.
Yeah, that we didn't pick that off the basically just by guess or anything like that. But rather, there was an in-depth study that we did together with the Ministry of Economy in terms of the potential of those sectors where they exist in Malaysia and how ready they are, or rather they were then 2 years ago, for technology adoption. And this is how we identified with the 9. And again, we didn't include transportation. There was no manufacturing in there. And this were ready for 4IR technologies as well. So we were mindful that there's the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry that is looking at manufacturing sector. So we need to be able to collaborate with them as we digitalize them. And that came out in the new Industrial Master Plan 2030 as well. So we feel that, okay, it's being done on that side. Let's go and have this and bring everyone towards the level of digitalization that is expected of a country undergoing that digital transformation.
Yeah.
So again, the list obviously is not final. We see potential in there. Obviously, out of that group, we see financial services being right at the top, highly regulated and highly digitalized. Whereas the construction, the agriculture is picking up and trying to gain some inertia for them to create momentum to do that.
And part of Malaysia's digital ecosystem is the Islamic digital economy.
That's right.
And how are you making inroads into there?
Well, traditionally, everyone has been going into the Sharia-compliant financial services. And that was, again, because financial services is already digitalized, it's easy to do the Sharia-compliant version of that. But we have also expanded that into other areas like lifestyles. So there's aspects of welfare, there's aspect of, how should I say this, living your assets and managing assets within your family as you passed on. So these are aspects within the Muslim society and also the Islamic lifestyle that has not been addressed, that we feel through the use of technology and anything digital can be taken advantage of and can ease the management of this, whether it's the courts and also the personnel involved in that. So I'm personally a big believer in tech, trying to solve as many things. So you will see me downloading apps and looking for apps for every single thing, as you can see on the card as well.
Yes.
So it's just about anything that I can get my hands on and really try to see if that can solve something that we do.
You know, I'm a big believer in tech as well, and you'll agree, we have to be smart about it.
Yes.
Right? So yesterday we heard from the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who issued a warning about AI, saying AI can be highly disruptive to the financial services industry in the United States. Earlier this week, we also heard from top engineers at OpenAI that issued a warning about the dark side of AI. Without a doubt, AI is revolutionary. It's a new industrial revolution that's underway. At CNN, we're already using AI and looking into new ways to use it. What's your thinking about best practices for integrating AI into Malaysia's digital economy?
Good thing that you brought that up. I just came back from Geneva, where we attended the AI for Good Summit, organized by ITU, International Telecommunications Union. And within that 3-day conference, you can almost see, and if I can paraphrase what Dr. Ruman Chowdhury mentioned in the last panel, was that it seems like within the 3 days, there's 2 sets of conversations going.
Yeah.
The main stage is talking about how do we regulate AI, this is dangerous, and so on and so forth, while the ones who are positive and really thinking about it are talking about it upstairs, 2 floors up, and saying that, okay, let's see how far AI can do this, how far it can take us, and the applications of this. So I think being open about it, on the conflicts and possible dangers of AI as we start to avoid. Of course, I think generally one of the things that has been talked about is avoiding singularity as far as AI is concerned. So,
and how do you define singularity?
I think this is where AI can just combine and start creating its own versions of it and spawning its own whatever versions that they have. Eventually, it is able to do that. It is able to create codes today. So how do you manage what sort of codes that are being created and what are the codes are being used for? So these are, I think, some of the general concepts that people are being mindful of, and the regulators as well are looking at managing that. I do believe in facilitating. I do believe in regulating, and while at the same time, you don't stop innovation. So I think it's okay to be careful, but be innovative.
Yes.
As you build this. Same thing, there's the aspect of humanity as you build AI. So while we think about AI for good, it is actually AI for the good of humanity. That's how I want to be able to take it.
Yeah,
So,
you want to be a facilitator.
yes.
You want to be open to using AI for good. And you can't regulate just yet because the story of AI, the promise and perils, is still an open-ended narrative.
That's right.
But drones, we know how the technology works, and you have introduced regulations for drones in Malaysia. What has been the impact of those regulations, and how have they created new opportunities in Malaysia?
The drone story in Malaysia, I think we've had back in 2017, 2018, roughly or so, we've had a few companies who began doing operations on drones, mostly from a hobbyist point of view, taking videos, photos, weddings, events, and things like that. But there's also at least 3 companies that I can name. One being Aerodyne, being a startup then. Second being a company that was called Polar Drone. Today it's called Aeonic. That was doing drone services for agriculture. And there's also Merak at that point. And these were companies who that I dealt with personally because I was in a different organization called Futurize that I started, mainly to address how can we regulate innovation safely. Because of the fact that the regulations with respect to unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs then was, I think, outdated. It needed something to ensure that we can use drones and things like that. So the first version of the regulations was one-stop center and having one place where they can refer to and also have that sort of guidelines, at least on the weight, what sort of, cargo it can carry, and so on and so forth. But since then, I think there have been many versions that have come out. And recently, they are talking about the beyond visual line of sight or BVLOS per se. There's also being the ability to chart routes, much like how airplane works, for drones, so that we know where they will be, so that they don't fly over people more than 100 or 200 people in the crowd. So that's actually new regulations on this. So again, trying to answer your question on unlocking opportunities. I argued then with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Transportation as well, that there's a big potential there. Let's regulate so that they can do businesses legally, rather than just, swipe or rather a broad brush over everything. Drones are illegal. When in fact, companies like Aerodyne at that time was already
now, Aerodyne is here, right?
Aerodyne.
Is Aerodyne here?
I don't see Kamarul, but
no? Okay.
but yeah, he's definitely very interested in this. So the thing about Aerodyne is that they were already providing services to multiple countries outside of Malaysia, but 0 projects in Malaysia at that time. And it is a Malaysian company. So again,
and you were able to turn that around.
Yes, of course.
It made sense. That's good. Okay, I know we hit time, but I just have 2 more questions before we open it up for Q&A. And I did want to ask about foreign direct investment, because there was a really strong, interesting statement recently from the Milken Institute that said this, quote, Malaysia ranks at the top of emerging Southeast Asia as the economy with the most potential to attract foreign direct investment. And that's an incredible statement there. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And to what degree is Malaysia's digital economy making your country a magnet for FDI?
My colleague Syed Samsul is here. And also Dato' Azmi as well. These are basically the 2 agencies who are looking at investments in general.
Yeah.
At MDEC, as part of the ecosystem development that we do, definitely we look at investments, and we, again, have seen a surge of heavy investments that is CAPEX related in data center as well. So again, long conversation in terms of whether Malaysia already has too many data centers, or should we have more? From an MDEC's perspective and ecosystem perspective, data centers are the cornerstones or the baselines for any digital economy. And it shouldn't be looked at from a perspective of just that particular investments. Again, taking up at least 6-7 acres to produce a set of megawatts with employing only 20 people. That particular assessment of those sort of digital investments has to go beyond the number of jobs and has to be seen in the next stage. If traditionally we've been looking at approved investments, and then of late we've been tracking how do we realize those investments, and these are the KPIs that we as investment promotion agencies are looking at. We have now to bring the conversation into the spillover effect. In this aspect of data center, we are looking at the conversation on data center economy. Look at them as hotels. You open up one hotel. Yes, they don't employ much. They will get the customers in. However, they do get the cleaners in. They do get the suppliers for the F&B. They open restaurants. They open maintenance and all that. And
that's
this
what you mean by creating an economy around
it. Exactly. So data centers are exactly like that. I understand there's a heavy need on our resources. The use on Malaysian resources with respect to water and energy. But at the same time, we have abundance of that coming out of East Malaysia. How do we then take advantage of this and still address that and manage that accordingly? And make use of the ones that we already have as far as data center. We have quite a fair bit down south and also in Klang Valley as well.
Fantastic. You know, at the very top, we talked about the near-term goal, again, about digital economy representing a quarter of GDP by next year. Final question, what is your forecast for Malaysia's digital economy? When you look far ahead, 5, 10, a generation from now, what do you see in the future?
The potential has always been there. We have the skill set. We are building this. Of course, the question has always been when we have the talents. And one of the issues that Malaysia faced for quite some time is the brain drain, and being addressed by a few agencies, Talent Corp being one of them and things like that. But again, as I spoke to yesterday, one of the agencies that looks at training as well, the question is not about supply. The question is to get them to stay and be interested in what we are trying to do here. Number one, if you're thinking about the Malaysian borders, have the projects, catalytic projects, if you may, just like how we are doing it at MDEC, projects like e-invoicing that we are embarking at the national level. Projects like Metaverse, we have the IP360 Metaverse. We're looking as well at Islamic digital economy. So these are projects that are, while they are not game-changing just yet, but they are big enough to create different kind of jobs and different kind of sub-projects that we can do as well. When you have them here, then this will make all the brains and whatever it is stay, at least keep them interested for a little bit longer.
Absolutely. You got to have all those burners firing at the same time.
Exactly. So again, not to be critical of my so-called place that I studied or whatever it is, I didn't stay long in Canada after I graduated. I did work for a bit, but again, the jobs were in ASEAN. So coming back to the jobs and the projects that we have within the ASEAN context, as we go into the chairmanship next year, 2025, digital is very high on the agenda. I'm sure our Prime Minister has been talking about that. How do we then build a digitally based ASEAN together with other countries and not think about only Malaysia? We have to be cognizant of the fact that Singapore has always been there. No one can be Singapore, but how do you work with Singapore and the funds that they have on that side? Second part, Indonesia with the market, Thailand with the market size as well. No one can grow as fast as they could to be Indonesia. But how do you then capitalize on those markets and work with this? And Indonesia remains as one of the highest digital export country for Malaysia on services, which is what we are tracking at the moment. So again, we need to be able to build this together. And I see the potential not only for Malaysia and I think Malaysia integrated with the rest of the ASEAN.
Yeah, for the region as well.
Yes.
Okay, we have time for a couple questions in the audience. Let's take 2 questions. We do have a roving microphone if anyone has any questions to ask. Mr. Mahathir Aziz, now is the chance. Let's do this. There we go. We got a question right there. So thank you.
Thank you, Mahathir, for the insights as well as sharing on the digital transformation. I guess one of the other topics when we talk about investments and not necessarily in digital also is things about data privacy. With digital transformation, data will cross over borders. And there have been some topics that have been discussed in saying that Malaysia is not keeping up. And probably can we get your perspective on it? And how can we ensure that we are keeping up with other regions to ensure that we continue to be attractive and relevant and cover these topics which are very sensitive? Thank you.
That's a great question. We were
Yes,
just talking
yes.
about this the other day. That's
Yes.
the reason why Elon Musk was in China talking to the number 2, the Chinese premier, because he wanted to make sure Tesla data could be able to leave China, of all places, in order to enable an autonomous fleet. But how do you respond to that question? How does it pertain to Malaysia?
I think that remains a hot topic for us to be able to address under the new Ministry of Digital, of which we are under at the moment. Definitely in the coming parliament sessions, there will be a revisions to the Personal Data Protection Act and also I believe, obviously it's beyond my pay grade to announce this, but I believe there will be changes to the Department of Personal Data Protection as well to ensure that we are not only keeping up, but really building and establishing a more and better governance that is comparable or at least at the same and at par with the rest of the ecosystem, not only in ASEAN but beyond that. So my counterparts, Prof. Nazri, still traveling right now, trying to get a bit more input and making the final touches on the revision to that act on that particular side. On the investment side, I think the recent investments by Microsoft and also Google creating data centers and also region cloud allows for that particular set of data to remain within Malaysian borders because of the aspect of the actual data centers being in Malaysia. Third part of this is, again, while we address personal data protection and also our data that resides with the government, can that be stored in the cloud somewhere? Again, Ministry of Digital will be looking at the national cloud policy. In fact, at the post-cabinet meeting yesterday, we spoke about that, and the National Digital Department or Jabatan Digital Negara is looking at that particular site together with our input. The classification of the data, what is or what can be made available on the cloud versus what is being kept anonymized and things like that, is where I think that heavy set of work needs to be done, not only by the ministries, but the agencies themselves. So again, it is, when we talk about data, you really have to go down and understand what you are having, what can be shared, and who the owners are for this particular thing. So the conversation goes quite a long way on top of the policies and the act that regulations that we're trying to put. So regardless of how and where the direction is going, I think we have established a set of goals that we're trying to achieve, and also integrity of data and protection.
It's such a fine balance, isn't it? Because you need to respect Malaysia's digital sovereignty, but you also want to integrate Malaysia with the global digital economy. And as you said, the amount of work here is pretty heavy. So to you and your team, good luck. We're going to leave it there, but let's give just a warm round of applause to Mr. Mahathir Aziz, CEO of MDEC, and let's welcome my colleague Jocelyn for a few words.